Somewhere right now, a person is making a decision that will cost them 10 years of their life. They don't know it yet. They're refreshing a stock chart, chasing a trend, jumping into a business idea because someone online made it look easy. They believe speed is the answer. They believe the faster they move, the faster they escape. And this belief, quiet, invisible, almost invisible even to them, is the exact reason most people never escape at all. Sun Tzu never promised speed. He promised something far more dangerous to the impatient mind. He promised that the side who waits correctly beats the side who moves first. In The Art of War, he warned that a general who rushes into battle without positioning has already lost, even if he wins the fight. The victory was decided long before the first blow. This is not a military footnote. This is the entire architecture of wealth. Most people are taught that money rewards effort. Work harder, hustle more, grind longer. But effort without positioning is just motion. It feels like progress. It burns years like fuel. And by the time most people realize the mistake, the decade is already gone, and someone else, someone who understood timing, is standing where they wanted to stand. The wealthy do not think in weeks. They do not think in viral moments. They think in decades, in cycles, in seasons that most people are too impatient to notice even exist. Rockefeller did not build an empire in a year. Buffett did not become Buffett by chasing the next hot stock. They waited. Not passively, strategically. There is a difference, and almost no one is taught it. This video is not about working harder. It is about a different kind of intelligence entirely, the intelligence of timing, of positioning, of knowing when not to move. Sun Tzu called it the difference between the general who wins and the general who merely survives. By the end of this video, you will understand why the people who seem to be moving the slowest are often moving the fastest, and why the system quietly depends on you never learning this. There is a lie that quietly runs through almost every ambitious mind, and it sounds so reasonable that no one thinks to question it. The lie says, move fast, and you will get there first. Refresh the chart one more time. Jump into the next trend before it's gone. Say yes to the side hustle, the crypto tip, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because hesitation feels like losing. Sun Tzu saw this pattern over 2,000 years ago, though he was watching kings, not day traders. He warned that no nation has ever benefited from a prolonged war, and that a general who drags his army into endless campaigns bleeds his own treasury dry, even when he wins individual battles. The victories are real. The exhaustion is also real. And exhaustion always arrives quietly, disguised as busyness. Picture the average person chasing wealth today. They open 5 income streams and finish none of them. They buy a course, half completed, then buy another. They watch a friend post about a stock that tripled and quietly panic that they're being left behind, so they buy in at the top. Each of these moves feels like action. Each one feels like progress. But motion is not the same as advancement, and this is exactly where most people lose years without ever losing a single visible battle. The system does not need you to fail loudly. It only needs you to stay busy enough that you never stop to ask whether you're moving in the right direction at all. Sun Tzu's answer was not to move slower for its own sake. It was to move only when the position demanded it, and to treat every other moment as preparation, not wasted time. This single distinction separates the wealthy from the exhausted majority, and it raises an uncomfortable question: if speed isn't the advantage everyone assumes it is, what actually is? That answer begins with something Sun Tzu considered before any army was allowed to march at all. Before Sun Tzu allowed a single soldier to advance, he asked one question: are we already unbeatable, regardless of what the enemy does? He taught that the skilled strategist first makes his own position secure, so that victory becomes a matter of waiting for the enemy's mistake rather than forcing an outcome through sheer effort. Invincibility, he said, lies in the defense. Victory lies in the attack, but only after the defense is real. Translate this into money, and the principle becomes almost uncomfortable in its simplicity. Most people try to attack wealth before they have secured anything. They chase a business idea with no savings behind them. They invest borrowed money into a venture they don't understand, hoping the upside arrives before the downside catches them. If it fails, they aren't just broke, they're further behind than before they started, because they attacked without a position to retreat to. Now picture someone else entirely. Someone quietly building an emergency fund while coworkers mock the boring choice. Someone spending 2 years mastering a skill instead of 2 weeks chasing a launch. To an outside observer, they look slow, even unambitious. But they are doing exactly what Sun Tzu described, securing the ground beneath them before ever stepping onto the battlefield. When opportunity finally does appear, they aren't gambling. They're striking from a position that was already unbeatable. This is the quiet difference between the person who takes 10 swings and gets lucky once, and the person who takes 1 swing and wins because 9 invisible battles were already won in preparation. Ask yourself honestly, are you currently attacking from strength, or are you attacking from desperation, hoping the market won't notice the difference? Sun Tzu's next principle explains why timing this correctly matters even more than the positioning itself, because even a fortified position can be wasted if it strikes at the wrong moment. Sun Tzu wrote that the clever fighter waits for the enemy's disorder before he strikes. He does not create chaos through force. He watches, patiently, until confusion does his work for him. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in strategy, because to the untrained eye, waiting looks like weakness. In reality, it is often the most aggressive move available. In 2008, while the financial world was collapsing and panic was spreading through every headline, Warren Buffett was not buying because he suddenly discovered new information. He had been holding enormous cash reserves for years, quietly ignored by a market that called it overly cautious, even outdated. Analysts questioned why Berkshire Hathaway sat on so much capital during the boom years leading up to the crash. Then the disorder came. Banks failed. Prices collapsed. And Buffett moved, decisively, publicly, buying stakes in Goldman Sachs and General Electric while others were selling in terror. He didn't predict the exact date of the crisis. He simply refused to attack before the enemy's disorder arrived, and stayed positioned so that when it did, he was the only one calm enough to act. This is the part almost no one prepares for emotionally. While Buffett waited those quiet years, plenty of louder, faster investors were posting bigger short-term gains. It must have felt, at times, like standing still while the world moved past him. That discomfort, watching others appear to win while you hold your position, is precisely where most people abandon the strategy. They mistake someone else's short-term noise for their own long-term failure, and they jump into the fight before the disorder ever arrives. Sun Tzu never asked his generals to be comfortable. He asked them to be right when it mattered. But timing alone isn't the full weapon. What happens during those long quiet years of waiting is not empty space, it is where the real advantage is being built, one small application of pressure at a time. Sun Tzu understood that not every victory comes from a single decisive clash. Some victories come from siege, a slow, relentless pressure applied consistently until the outcome becomes unavoidable. No single day of a siege looks like progress. The walls stand exactly as they stood yesterday. But beneath that stillness, the pressure never stops accumulating, until one day the walls that seemed permanent simply give way. This is compounding, described in a language older than finance itself. It has nothing to do with sudden windfalls or lucky trades. It is small, boring, repeated pressure, a percentage applied to a percentage, year after year, until the numbers stop looking small at all. Andrew Carnegie did not build his steel empire through a single genius transaction. He reinvested profits into infrastructure and efficiency for years before the empire became visible to outsiders. Compare this to the modern story that plays out constantly among retail traders. Someone opens an account, makes an aggressive bet, doubles their money in a week, feels invincible, then gives it all back and more in the following month, because they were playing a different game than the one that actually builds wealth. Meanwhile, the person quietly investing a fixed amount into an index fund every month, ignoring the noise, is running Carnegie's siege in miniature. Boring. Repetitive. Undefeated over time. Here is the part that breaks most people: the siege often looks like failure right up until the moment it succeeds. The wall doesn't crack a little more each visible day, it holds, and holds, and holds, until it doesn't. Most people abandon the siege in year 4, unaware that year 7 was where the walls were always going to fall. This raises a darker question. One Sun Tzu would have asked immediately: if the siege works so reliably, why do so few people ever finish one? Sun Tzu warned that the skilled general chooses his own battlefield, and forces the enemy to fight on ground the enemy did not choose. He never engaged where the terrain favored his opponent. Yet most people, when it comes to money, do the exact opposite without ever noticing. They let the market choose the terrain. They let headlines choose the timing. They let someone else's excitement choose the opportunity. This is reactive wealth seeking, and it feels productive precisely because it isn't passive. There's a name whispered in a group chat, a chart trending on social media, a friend who got in early on something, and suddenly the decision isn't made from strategy at all. It's made from fear of being left out. By the time the average person hears about an opportunity, the people who actually chose the battlefield are already several moves ahead, quietly exiting while the crowd is just arriving. Picture the familiar scenario: someone jumps into real estate because a coworker mentioned rising prices, then jumps into a new business idea 6 months later because a video made it look simple, then jumps into a trending stock a year after that. Each move feels urgent in the moment. Looking back, a pattern emerges, always arriving after the ground has already shifted, always fighting on terrain someone else selected. Sun Tzu would not call this bad luck. He would call it a strategic error, made before the first dollar was ever spent, the error of letting the enemy, in this case the noise of the crowd, choose when and where the battle happens. The uncomfortable truth is that reacting to opportunity is not the same as pursuing it. And this is where the wealthy quietly diverge from everyone else, not in what they chase, but in what they refuse to chase at all. There is a dangerous misunderstanding hiding inside everything said so far. Someone could hear "wait for the right moment" and quietly decide that waiting means doing nothing, checking out, coasting, telling themselves that patience alone will eventually pay off. Sun Tzu never taught this. He taught that the general who appears still is often the general working hardest, studying terrain, gathering intelligence, preparing supply lines long before the enemy ever sees him move. Charlie Munger built much of his reputation on a phrase that sounds almost lazy on the surface: sit on your hands. But look closer at what he actually did during those quiet periods. He read constantly, across disciplines, psychology, history, business, science, building what he called a latticework of mental models, so that when the rare correct opportunity finally appeared, he could recognize it instantly and act with total conviction. His stillness was not empty. It was loaded. Naval Ravikant describes something similar with the idea of specific knowledge, expertise so particular to a person's experience and curiosity that it cannot be taught in a classroom or copied by a competitor. Building that knowledge looks, from the outside, like nothing is happening. No launch, no headline, no visible win. But it is the exact work that makes someone unmistakably ready the moment their window opens. This is the line that separates strategic patience from passive waiting, and it is a line most people never learn to see. Passive waiting hopes something changes. Strategic patience prepares so thoroughly that when something changes, only one person in the room is actually ready for it. The next question follows naturally, and it's the one that decides whether all of this becomes a decade of quiet advantage or simply a longer, slower version of the same mistake. What is this preparation actually building toward? Sun Tzu did not measure a campaign in single battles. He measured it in the long arc of a kingdom's survival, decades, generations, the fate of a dynasty long after the general himself was gone. This is the final and most overlooked layer of strategic wealth, because most people, even disciplined ones, are still secretly playing a one-year game while calling it patience. Jeff Bezos made this visible in a way few CEOs ever dared to. For years, Amazon reported thin profits, sometimes none at all, while Wall Street analysts openly questioned whether the company even had a real business model. Bezos was not failing to generate profit, he was refusing to extract it, reinvesting everything into infrastructure, logistics, and long-term dominance that wouldn't fully reveal itself for a decade or more. He was playing a 20-year game while being judged, quarter after quarter, by people playing a 3-month game. The mismatch in time horizon was the entire strategy. This is the quiet, uncomfortable truth about generational wealth: it is rarely built by someone optimizing for this year, or even this decade. It is built by someone who has decided their real deadline is far enough away that panic simply doesn't apply to them anymore. Sun Tzu called this the mark of a true strategist, one who plans not for the next skirmish, but for the shape of the entire war. And this reframes everything that came before it. The positioning, the timing, the siege, the refusal to chase, none of it was ever about moving slowly for its own sake. It was ambition, matured past the need for immediate proof, playing a longer and far more difficult game than the one everyone else assumes is the only game available. Which leaves one final question, the one this entire video has been quietly building toward: if the wealthy are playing a different game, what does it actually feel like to switch which game you're playing? Somewhere, right now, that same person from the beginning is still refreshing the chart, still chasing the next fast answer, still mistaking motion for progress. They are not lazy. They are not unintelligent. They simply never learned that the game they're playing has rules older than the stock market itself, rules Sun Tzu understood on battlefields long before anyone called it wealth building. You now know what they don't. You know that speed without positioning is just exhaustion wearing the costume of ambition. You know that securing your ground matters more than how fast you move across it. You know that the quiet years aren't wasted years, they're the siege doing its work beneath the surface, one imperceptible layer of pressure at a time. You know the difference between waiting and preparing, and you know that the wealthiest among us were never playing this year's game at all. This is the identity shift Sun Tzu offers, and it has nothing to do with finance textbooks or hustle culture. It is the shift from soldier to strategist, from someone who reacts to the battlefield to someone who chooses it. Once you see this distinction, you cannot unsee it. Every reckless jump into the next trend, every panic-driven decision, every moment of "everyone else is moving, why aren't I?" it all starts to look different. Slower on the surface. Inevitable underneath. The war for financial freedom is not won in a single dramatic battle. It is won quietly, by the person who refused to fight before the position was secure, before the timing was right, before the siege had done its work. The only question left is whether you're willing to be that person, patient enough to win the war everyone else is too impatient to notice they're losing. If this way of thinking resonated with you, you already know what strategic minds do next: they go deeper.